every time it says go live, you pull the trigger, you start a video, you're going to do something for the Lord, you're all in his hands. Hallelujah. This all started because I was listening to Isaiah 65, and it said this one part, dust will be the serpent's food. There's this other one in Isaiah chapter 2, verse 10, where people were supposed to hide in the dust. So we're going to do a Bible study on dust. I want to put it on the record. I have a few things to look at in this world where things aren't adding up. Senators dropping dead and having mystery women called the 911 and said, you've got to have somebody rush to Lindsey Graham's apartment. But they didn't mention his name. They gave the address. They said, you've got to rush to the Georgetown apartment here. The door's unlocked. Go right in. It was a woman for Baltimore on the 911 call for Lindsey Graham. His boyfriend didn't want to leave a recording or something. Who knows? Who's the other guy? Mitch McConnell. Everybody knows that's a fake photograph. He's dead or in a coma, but they're propping him up. The Charlie Kirk story, Bush, Trump, 4, 5, 6 assassinations. And the main thing is dust. We're made from the dust. They're going to war. You can avoid being collateral damage by, I think, trying to listen to the spirit of don't plowshares over swords, helping clean water, staying away from the battle, not trying to prove something to God like I can fight for you or I'm willing to die for mommy. I don't know what's going on. Welcome, everybody, to Mudflood was Armageddon. Mudflood was Armageddon. Don't let them tell you anything else unless they're willing to debate you in a fair and honest way. With that being said, I may be showing some other videos. All of this as I'm waiting on a phone call from a guy about moving. And that's a big deal. I had to offer Zach Mack, if you could help, that would be a fantastic thing. I don't know if I have any pictures in the downloads. Negative. This is going to be a Bible study thing here. So I hear dwell forever. We'll leave this up as we go to, let's do the Isaiah 2:21 first, and then I'll show you the videos that have sparked my life for this morning. Isaiah 2:21 is one of the verses that has dust in it. And I wrote it at the top of the page. To enter the caverns of the rocks and the clefts of the cliffs from before the terror of the Lord and from the splendor of his majesty when he rises to terrify the earth. Now, is that a dusty one? Is that a dusty one in the King James? I don't see it. Go to the clefts of the rocks and into the tops of the ragged rocks for fear of the Lord and for the glory of his majesty when he ariseth to shake terribly the earth. Now, that might be the same number. We're going to have to see how that ties in, but the main focus will be finding out what kind of dust will be the serpent's food. Hey, this is the mystery phone call I was telling you about. I don't know this guy, the political punk, but why somebody from Baltimore?
A woman from Baltimore, or to text her and say, I am having a massive coronary event so that woman can then call 911 and explain to you that the door is open. That doesn't make any sense. Okay. That does not make any sense unless it was not Lindsey Graham who contacted the woman.
Right. So they want to know, well, who was it? All of this about everybody loves the Book of Enoch. And do you know what the Book of Enoch's been hiding in the AI called Black Myth Aura? Wants you to know.
The Church of Our Lady Mary of Zion in Axum, Ethiopia. That describes something no Western Bible has ever contained. Humans before the flood had two bodies, one that aged, one that did not. And when the flood was announced, they didn't try to save both. They hid the one that mattered. In the next several minutes, you'll see what the text actually says about this.
No, you won't. It's a computer going to stretch it out to, like Jude is mentioned, mentions Enoch quote. Peter mentions it. Everybody studied it for hundreds of years, and they finally discovered it in 1952. Look at this dramatic, over the top.
Shut, ignored for 4 years because no one could figure out how to open it without destroying it. When they finally cut it apart at the Manchester College of...
Wait, you got to get it. When did they find it?
A copper scroll, green with oxidation and brittle enough that it had to be sliced into 23 strips before anyone could read it, sits behind reinforced glass at the Jordan Museum in Amman. It was found in 1952 in Cave 3 at Qumran, rolled tight, corroded shut, ignored for 4 years because no one could figure out how to open it without destroying it. When they finally cut it apart at the Manchester College of Science and Technology in 1956, they found 64 entries, 64 locations, where something had been buried before the destruction came. Most scholars assumed gold.
You could assume it was the Book of Enoch. Nobody knew about it, but all of a sudden in the Book of Enoch, there were 11 fragments or copies that taught weird things that Haile Selassie turned into Bob Marley, you're my Messiah, Haile Selassie, Jamaica, reggae, everything's weird, Book of Enoch, man.
2. But the gaze doesn't stop there. Verses 8 through 10, read in the Ethiopian manuscript, contain a structural claim about humans that the English smooths over. God doesn't just say angels are spiritual and humans are physical. He says humans were given two coverings, one that permits death and one that does not. And that the purpose of the mortal covering was
you're going to find out more and more about this book that leads you to, continues on to the wide road of Mariolatry, Greek Orthodox, Roman Catholic. They're both going to take you to Mary, Mary, Mary.
But his rendering of the Hebrew has never been successfully challenged on linguistic.
Enough to this computer. I probably have more lined up.
Old maps versus current maps and satellite views is that the area has been pretty comprehensively sort of developed, built all over since the 1803 discovery of the milestone. It literally was all fields here now, but now it's houses.
That's pretty cool. What are you talking about, man? That's rock. Roll. Look at that. Hey.
Imagine
There it
seeing that
is.
big boy sticking out of the ground after a storm in 1803. Compare it to this more modest example upstairs in the Lancaster City Museum for a sense of just how grand it is. You will note that Hadrian's name is very clear on this. In fact, the whole of the inscription is very clear, suggesting this didn't end up in the beck. It fell, ended up being
Some of those letters look remarkably like English, don't they?
buried, but there's no sign of water erosion on
Really?
this thing. Now, presumably, this crude repair tells us that the milestone broke when it fell to the ground, although this early sketch from its initial residency up Artle Beck here doesn't seem to show that damage. Hopefully, it wasn't a case of butterfingers when they moved it to the museum.
Okay, it's a Roman thing. I was studying this today.
On the milestone makes me wonder if it wasn't something like lunium with the ca part as a prefix, perhaps a bit more formal, or simply a later typo. Let me know what you think in the comments.
This is Hadrian's Road. You're 4 miles from Lunomian. Miles, not some other mythical thing. A mile. What was it, 5,200 and X number of feet? Hey, I'm getting tired of this music.
Footpath, then this is around about the location where the milestone was found in 1803 next to Artle Beck there. Now, I'm sure you will have noticed as we've made our way here that the village nowadays pretty much comes up to the edge of Artle Beck. But fortunately, down here, right by the side of the beck, we've got a little bit of nature has been...
Is there like everywhere in Peru and everywhere in England, every little mountain is some ancient thing?
The nerves. So that was very interesting. But again, this was a mouse model, but it does hold promise that it could be a potential treatment in the future for multiple sclerosis. And I have patients ask me all the time, can ivermectin be used for my autoimmune condition? Because I don't want to take these autoimmune medications. And I ask them why. They're worried that it will suppress their immune system or it can even give them cancer as well. And that's a very valid reason to maybe shy away from these medications. But are there other alternative medications such as ivermectin that could potentially work? So when it comes to ivermectin and autoimmune diseases, the first question we should be asking is, are there any high quality human studies done on this medication with any autoimmune diseases? And their answer is surprisingly no. There are currently no high quality human studies done so far on different autoimmune diseases such as multiple sclerosis, lupus, or even rheumatoid arthritis. And I scoured the literature for you. So far, there are none, but there will be in the future, hopefully. The second question is, well, if there are no human studies, are there any studies done at all? Or are people just blabbering this off on the internet? Well, yes, I will tell you there are studies done on ivermectin. And
so if you haven't heard this, it's something that you might want to consider studying it,
of steroids, and ivermectin was able to bring down IL-17, MF kappa beta, and also TNF.
Nobody knows what he's talking about.
Well, if you think back to your time in high school, maybe you were crunching for tests or getting ready for school dances. But as First Alert 6, Zena Tahar explains, one Millard North student spent her sophomore year finding a solution to a worldwide issue.
Some ideas start small, but others are global.
I wanted to look at something broad that everybody needs in order to survive.
When 16-year-old Hanisha Rajamala started working on a new research project in October, she knew what she wanted to focus on: clean drinking water.
My idea came from the amount of people that don't have access to it, like in Nebraska and as well as Africa and Asia.
So she started by gathering tap water.
I took the water from
So it's everywhere in the world, it's about tap water right now, and healthy water, clean water, and STEM students, people who get picked at an early age to be taught goofy things, and it takes the Lord to snap them out of it.
Submitted her findings to a national STEM festival and was one of 52 students around the country selected to present in D.C. this summer. While the festival was an honor and her parents were very proud of her, the goal of her project is a lot bigger.
We want to make sure that people who don't have access to money and don't have access to buy that expensive types of material can still afford it.
Hanisha wants the world to have access to clean water, and she believes in her ability to help make that happen.
Yeah, she basically was sticking garlic and some other antimicrobial, I don't know, naphthalopathy is doing that alternative medicine stuff. She won. She won a prize. We're about ready to look at some Bible.
There was a counter argument to Mahan that comes a generation later by a Briton, Sir Halford Mackinder, who's looking at the world and looking at Britain's problems. And he thinks that actually Russia occupies the best geopolitical location on the world, not Great Britain. And this is a map from his 1904 article. And he defines as the pivot area, Eurasia is the part of the world he's focusing on. And it's where Russia is. And he also calls it the Great Heartland. And he said, look, that area, the pivot area, is the citadel of land power on the great mainland of the world. It is the greatest natural fortress on the world. Why? Because it's insulated by mountains, deserts, frozen seas, and rivers that exit onto the oceans in very inaccessible places during wartime. And therefore, it is impervious to sea power. That Britain can't really get at this area.
Well, I don't know, but my mind is going towards the LGBTQ Strait of Hormuz and the trouble they're having with being so exposed in a very necessary port that is exposed every day. It doesn't, everybody needs to use it, but everybody can't put their missiles there. I wonder if there's anything else I wanted to look at here with this thing. You know, see what my history was. There was a couple other that, there's the drinking water, those I just showed. Tyler Robinson, everybody's lying about that. This was a bad AI thing. People mad at flock cameras, right? There's that mystery woman thing. That was a late add to the party. Oh no, they're shooting down the stuff and now we're broke. It was supposed to be that way. Another fatal shooting involving ICE. The guy last week in Houston, wasn't he? He wasn't the guy they were looking for. He was in here 30 years, had a business, and was like kind of famous locally, and not a bad guy at all. But they didn't announce they were police. They just chased him down and told him pull over. It's insane. So that's about all I had on that. Postal Union Awards, Judge 4K. This is insanity. So I looked up, here's where they found the Dead Sea Scrolls that in Ethiopia, that, you know, they claim it's the ancient scriptures of Askham. Now, you know, you have another body hidden somewhere that the book of Enoch teaches in their hidden scriptures that are locked in the Jordan Museum, but they have copies of it. They know. Catholic and Protestant canons. The Ethiopian Bible has 81 books. Okay. There's 39 books in the Old Testament. The Ethiopian Bible has 35 in the New Testament, and the correct number is 29. Book of Enoch. So they make a big deal, you know, that how could they not pick it at the Council of Chalcedon or the Council of Nicaea? Well, the simple fact is those are fake. That's the rewritten history of how they decided it. It was the 1,000 years. The Mudflood was Armageddon. That's all a lie. They had these buildings that after Satan's loosed, they had to repopulate. Man, I'd like to get me some of that. Yeah, I would like to get, and they have things that it may as well be that if you're going to live in Africa with mites and parasites, you have to take a paste antibiotic. It's like ivermectin, that it works. That's in Australia. back to the book of the Ethiopians, but this is going to take you to Atlantis, unbiblical angels mating with humans, the Gibborim, the Nephilim, as if that only is a bad thing, to be a Gibborim. You don't want to be a man of renown. David's mighty men were all of men of renown who were Gibborim. It's the Latin Vulgate. That's another one. The Septuagint. That's as evil as the book of Enoch. When you think 72 people were told to write a rough draft of the Bible and every word matches, and people who want me to consider them normal believe that and think, well, that proves that that's the Bible we should be using. No, it doesn't. Ethiopian historiography. Where would we be unless they could explain the 13th century and late antiquity to us based on gee whiz? Sure glad they found the information about Enoch in 1952. Where would we be without being able to mislead people onto a very wide road? They don't need much leading, so they don't give it a lot. But from what I understand, it is like, block A, block B, block C. It's as fishy as the Rosetta Stone, because now they found this in block and it had all three of the ancient languages, because you hear so much about we couldn't understand it for all those glyphs of the Mayans. We're finally understanding it now. But they had the translations handed to them. Same with the Rosetta Stone. I'm going to get back to the Bible study pretty soon, so we'll look at the Ethiopian historiographies. Everything about it, from AD 100 to 940. Well, that sounds like they're adding the mystery 1,000 years. And it's going to be supported. That's going to be your universal and global histories that they want to act like they know what the Bible's talking about. They're going to take someone like Solomon and turn him into, he had magic rings that cast demon spells. Look, he was a horn dog, and it's up in the air whether he fell too far from the tree or not. But there is no proof of anything except in the book of Enoch and the late antiquities who talk about, he was an alchemist or whatever else they have going with him. Prester John, you never get away from that. He's on the maps, richest man that ever lived. Islamic. And that is so fake. They needed those fake Middle Ages so that they could, say there was a Muhammad, act like the whole world believed it. And what? The rest of the world decided, out of honor to Muhammad, we'll never mention his name or show pictures of him. Are you kidding me? You know what? I'm surprised. Well, I'm going to keep going here. So here's what they considered the late antiquity. We don't know if these are all fake or not, but probably it's the added 1,000 years. They got they built all these things, repaired the towers, cast bronze, and then it all went away because of the plague. How much of our history is true? They've rewritten everything. So here's the language that it's written in. And this is that stone that has what is written on it. The Izana stone that talks about what it was like to live there in 30. Oh, sure. Isn't that convenient? 330 to 356 ruled this ancient kingdom where they got the translation so that they can figure out the languages on a golden platter. And it basically talks about Jesus Christ and there being sacrifices, Zoroastrians who were Greeks who believed in one God, the Lord of heaven who in the sky and earth holds power. Who knows what they're going on here? But as I read it, I did see, mentions to not only Lord of heaven, but one of them, let the Lord tear up the name of the Son of God in whom I put my reliance. Why aren't we supposed to believe this was a part of it? Here's the servant of Christ who is not defeated by any enemy. I trust myself to Christ. These were non-Trinitarian Christians who they somehow twist into proto-Muslims who it wouldn't be that hard of a stretch or whatever. But let's look at some of these things about dust. I have to be honest with you. I am not one who gets big crowds, but when I see that, no one is watching and it's only been 26 minutes, usually there's a few people that will be watching, and that's kind of thrown me off. But I do have nothing scheduled for the next half hour or more. So I want to go over these and get it on the record of what is dust. So let's look and find Isaiah 65, where it said, dust will be the serpent's food, because that's not the serpent that is used in most of it. So Isaiah 65. And I didn't catch the verse, but I know it was towards I thought it was near the end of it. Do not destroy. There's a blessing in it. This is the part where it's a blessing at the end. When the former times of trouble are forgotten and hidden from God's eyes, we have to watch out. Also, the one, these were gods. They fill cups of mixed wine for fortune and destiny. Those are the women who, goddesses. The iniquities of their father. And I'm not even sure if it's going to mention the dust in the ESV. That might only be for the KJV. Let's look up the one and get the numbers on it. Exodus 9:9. It shall become fine dust. Fine dust. And this is not the normal word for dust that we're going to see. Boils will break out on man because of dust and beast throughout the land. Well, we better look at that dust then. Bursting boils. Here it is. 80. It's number 80, fine dust or powder. Looks like it's used 6 times. There it is. Powder and dust, because they have cast away small dust. Their horses kick up a lot of dust. And in Nahum 1:3, I know that I have that one written down too, because let's look at it. The Lord is slow to anger and great in power, and the Lord will by no means clear the guilty. His way is in whirlwind and storm, and the clouds are the dust of the feet. He rebukes the sea and makes it dry. He dries up all the rivers. It is a very water centric, and then the mountains quake and the hills melt. The earth is heaving, the world and all that is in it. It is not only Armageddon affected Jerusalem and the Roman army, and that's it. It was a worldwide situation. Now, I'm going to write down, I have a pen, so I'm going to go to that interlinear and look up the number for that dust. Was it at 80? Oh, it's verse 3. It is. So I'm going to put down by that one 80, so I know. Also in Nahum 3:18. We can jump to that one because we're in Nahum. I'm not sure, but I don't think it's the same number. Possibly, but if it is, we'll confirm it. Your nobles are what? Are at rest? R-E-S-T? Or is that, I don't know. You don't usually see it. I think that's the first typo I've ever seen. What does it mean? Strictly from it is in Nahum 3:18. It's in Ezekiel 3:1. It came to pass by the river Chebar. Ezekiel 3. Seven nine. I'm going to write that number down. 7931. So that is a different one. If there is anything about this verse that says dust, dwell, dwells, lived, dwelt, established. So the nobles lived there. That is okay. So it is used 128 times. Here's 9. Nahum. The nobles shall dwell, and it has parentheses in the dust for the King James Version only, in brackets. Your nobles shall dwell. And honestly, it may imply that they're going to die at that section in Nahum, and that's where they're going to remain. That's where, until the last day and the last hour, till the great white throne, it's you're going to dwell therein and remain, refreshing our memory at the end of this book. Your shepherds are asleep, O king of Assyria. Your nobles slumber. Your people are scattered on the mountains with none to gather them. There is no easing your hurt. Your wound is grievous. All who hear the news about you clap their hands over you. For upon whom has not come your unceasing evil. Isn't it strange? Syria. There's another prophet that talks about a change that happened to a country that you think you know all about. Let's read down to verse 23. In that day, there will be a highway from Egypt to Assyria, and Assyria will come into Egypt, and Egypt into Assyria. And the Egyptians will worship with the Assyrians. In that day, Israel will be the third with Egypt and Assyria. In that day, Israel will be the third with Egypt and Assyria. They won't be the first or the second. They will be the third. A blessing in the midst of the earth, whom the Lord of hosts bless, saying, Blessed be Egypt, my people, Assyria, the work of my hands, and Israel, mine inheritance. I'll have more to say about dust and more to say about what is an inheritance and what we're looking for. That great big, well done, my good and faithful servant. It's a flat earth nation. The golden age is past because the mud flood was Armageddon. Me and my friends are never going to tell you anything else because we know that we're called, chosen, and need to be faithful to the end. How do you prove you're saved? You die in faith. Amen. Hallelujah. Aho. Aloha. Arrivederci. Ciao. Sayonara. Auf Wiedersehen. Nakamen. Adios, amigos. From the border of southern Colorado and New Mexico. That's how I like to say goodbye. I hope that mentioning ivermectin just didn't shut me down.